Okay. Today we're going to start Yud Zayin Amid Beis. I don't see a choice to learn Mitzvah Shabbos, not Mitzvah Shabbos, to learn Thursday night. Maybe after Ma'ariv. What time is Ma'ariv over here? 6:15. I don't know if I'm back. We'll try to do it. Is that okay? To learn for an hour after Ma'ariv Thursday? Let's try.
Could we ask Hillel possibly to send out a notice if there is learning?
Okay, it'll be tomorrow night. Today's Wednesday, so tomorrow night. Hillel, you send it out. So we'll decide.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start by Amar Rava, Kol Shebezav Tameh. To me, it's about 16 lines on the bottom. I think Hashem the terrible twin Torah every day. Most of our learning Hashem based in English. So we've been discussing Treiris. Was the last thing that we were asking. The last thing was a discussion in Rava. Rava was discussing how Treiris works. We concluded that Treiris is a halacha l'meshim. Treiris is when there's an animal is walking normally, but pebbles shoot out from under his feet, and it causes damage. So it's like secondary, what is that called? Collateral damage. And it comes not directly from him; it comes from the side. Okay, so Amar Rava. Rava says, "Kol shebezav tamei." Anything that a zav would make tamei. A zav makes tamei with. He sits on something or he moves something. Then b'nezakin mishalem nezek shalim. If it would be damages in such a fashion, then we'd pay nezek shalim, pay full price. Treiris is only half price. Kol shebezav tar, anything that a zav would be tar, b'nezakin mishalem chatzi nezek. Then you would pay half price by nezakin. This reminds me of what did they say when what's the grammar word for something that's like near on top of under? What's the word for it? What's the word? No, it doesn't. Again, say that's with a P. Yeah, preposition. Preposition. I'll tell you what's a preposition. I'll tell you anything that a squirrel can do to a tree. It can go on the tree, over the tree, under the tree, or around the tree, or next to the tree. That's a preposition. So, okay. So what our Gemara is doing is it's saying anything that a zav makes tamei, that's what a nezikin by damages, that would be nezek shalim. Anything that by a zav would be tar, so by nezikin would be chatzi nezek. What would be an example of nezikin is tar? That would be if a zav threw something at someone. So the keli is tamei because the zav touched the keli, but the keli hit someone. So that doesn't make the person tamei. So such a thing would be chatzi nezek. So in other words, it's like the power of, it's a secondary damage. That's what it seems like we're learning. What asks for Rava? Treiris asalash minan. Rava is coming to tell me Treiris, that secondary type damage is only going to be half price. The Gemara says lie. In other words, the question is that Treiris we have in Mishnayos. Mishnayos talk about it. Rava is a much later Amira. Gemara says lie. Rava egla or agala egla misheches bekarin kamash malan agala egla misheches bekarin. What's the vowels in it? Egla misheches bekarin. We translate that as a calf pulling a cart. So Rashi learns this, that if there's a zav sitting in a cart and it goes over any item, so because the zav was sitting on it, so that item's going to be coming. So too, if there's a cart that's being pulled and it breaks, the animal is pulling the cart and it breaks something that it drives over, so it's going to be considered chayiv nezek sham. It's considered the direct damage. It's not considered secondary just because it's not attached. It's not the animal itself. Because it's attached to the animal, because it's the cart that's attached to the animal, it's going to be chayiv nezek sham. And he's comparing it to a zav. Yeah, the commentaries say that the comparison is very off, because the zav is sitting on top of it, yes, in the wagon, and because of that, it's causing the damage. And then you say, okay, that's similar to an animal that's pulling the wagon.
There's first and second level.
Right. But if the zav sits on top of something, it's a very high level of tumah. That's different. That has to do with the tumah traveling up. Here we're talking about the tumah traveling down. No, because it's only if he sits on it. It's only the weight that he puts on it. It's not being just because he went over it. It's different. This is the chair of a the chair of a zav has a very serious tumah. Mar now says something similar to Rava. Okay, Rava says this, but we have a brisa that supports this. Hanikava say the Rava. We have a brisa that supports the halacha that Rava taught us. What would be an example of an animal that breaks in its normal way, a typical way of walking? Well, Gemara explains, the brisa explains, if an animal walks in to the property of the victim, which is the damagee, Bizika, and the damager causes damage in this other property. The gufa derech chilucha, while it's with its body while it's walking. The sire derech chilucha, with the hair that's on it while it's walking. The ukiv shela, with the saddle. The shlif shela, which we said was the package that's on it. The pumri shebepia, with the muzzle that's on its mouth. Zug shebet savara, with the bell that's around its neck. The chamar b'masay, and the donkey with the load that's on it, wide load. The egla meisheches bekarin, or if it's a wagon that's being pulled by a calf, shalim nezek shalim, you have to pay full price. See, that's what Rava was telling us, that the wagon that causes damage by the calf, we don't say that that's a secondary damage. We say that that's a direct damage, and it's nezek shalim. Tana Rabbana was taught in the price. Tana Goylem shayim mechatim bechevel dli. Chickens that are pecking at the rope of a bucket, and then the rope breaks and the bucket falls. The rope snaps and the bucket falls. You have to pay nezek shalom. You have to pay full price. I would assume from reading this that it means on the bucket. We're going to see it's not so simple. Pay full price for the bucket.
I don't use the term collateral, because collateral damage assumes the initial action was intended, like they intended to shoot somebody and the bullet unfortunately hit somebody else. And here there was no original intent, so it's an unintended or incidental.
But I'm talking about, what's the term that we use that it's indirect? He broke, like here.
No, we use that term collateral, but it's always in the case of an intention to begin with. Here I would say unintended or unintentional incident.
Oh, okay. So, Boy Rava has a question. Darsa ala keli v'lei shavrate. Let's say, we're still talking about the chicken. If it steps on a vessel, but it didn't break the vessel. But because it stepped on it, it rolled around, it rolled somewhere else, and it broke somewhere else as it rolled down the hill. But who pushed it down the hill? It was this chicken that stepped on it. So now, what's going to be the din? Do we say that you look at it at the initial action, and the initial action was done directly by him stepping on it? Or do we look at the broken vessel with when we consider it incidental damage, that it came like secondary? In other words, like this: when an animal steps on pebbles, I'm not concerned about the pebbles breaking. There's no problem with the pebbles breaking. No one is even going to notice if the pebbles broke. The problem is that the pebbles then shot out and broke a vessel that was nearby. So it's not the pebbles that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the vessel that got broken from the pebbles that shot out. Okay, that's regular case of tshreirus. What happens if I switch those pebbles and now I'm talking about a vessel? Steps on the vessel, but he doesn't break the vessel. But the vessel shoots out and gets broken somewhere else. Here, Rav is comparing the vessel now to the pebble. Do I look at it as the direct action of his foot, that he shot it out and caused it, and therefore it's called basar mikara, and therefore it's a direct damage, and he's the one that broke it? Or do I say I view it like tshreirus? I look at it as it's broken at the time that it broke, and it wasn't broken by his foot. It was broken by something else. That's called tshreirus.
Is this still in the Rishus HaNezek?
Regular would be in the Rishus HaNezek, yeah.
So we're still someplace where it doesn't belong.
The animal doesn't belong there, right?
Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Over here, I don't know if you have to go back here yet, but it talks about an animal that tramples on a vessel, but it didn't break. It then broke.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. So the Gemara says on this question of Rava, the Gemara says, why is Rava asking a question? Tifsheit le midirabba. Rava could have answered this from a statement that Rava made. Now Rava's older than Rava. Rava was the teacher of Rava. Rava was the teacher of Abaye and Rava. Remember the story with him? He said, "Where's God?" In the Gemara Brachos, where Rava asked the students, "Where's God?" And Rava points up. Abaye goes outside and points up. But anyway, so the Gemara here, Rava has a question. What do I say about this this vessel that breaks, but it jumps somewhere else because he stepped on it, it breaks over there? Do I say that's chatzi nezek? It says he could have answered that from something that Rabba said. Rabba for sure knows what Rabba said. Rabba said, Zara Keli Marisha Gag. Someone threw a vessel off a roof. And another person comes and hits it with a stick. He's pater. This would be someone drops on his someone with a baseball bat, is like as it's falling down, he hits it. So the guy that you see this, it's a very interesting case because the guy that dropped it off the roof, it's going to break. There's no question it's going to break. But the guy that broke it, he's the one that really broke it. Okay, he hit it. But we tell him that he's exempt because he broke a broken vessel, which means that because it was definitely going to break when it hits the ground.
Yes, that means that if the guy wins the game by hitting the home run, that the pitcher is playing was
Right.
Like when they break the neighbor's
exactly.
You murder somebody who's terminally ill.
Yeah, it's not the same law. I think it's not the same law. If someone kills someone that's going to die, is that considered murder?
According to this, yeah.
According to this, no, because it was going to die anyway.
No, I'm saying no, right? It's not.
I think it says that it's not. Right. Everyone's going to die. Yeah, everyone's going to die. That's true. But there is a difference where there's a. What is it? He said, except for Elchanan. Elchanan said that he's planning on living forever, and so far it's going quite well.
That's what they said before they assassinated Caesar. He's gonna die anyway, so.
Oh, really? Is that what they said?
That was their.
I just read in the gun magazine that a person, self-defense, shot and killed the person, that the police come and interrogate you. Mama should just read this. That if they ask you, did you shoot to kill? All right? Because obviously, the answer is no, you shot to stop. You felt you endangered this death. Because if you obviously you shot and you killed the person. But if you answer yes, you shot to stop the person who was.
Okay.
Remember that line.
I don't have a gun.
Mentally, you just
Okay.
didn't know what was going on.
So, we did this in the physics class. We dropped eggs off the balcony, and the students had to try to catch it without it breaking. There was this way of catching it where you, anyway. So some of them wanted it to break, but who broke it then? The guy that dropped it, or the kid on the bottom that was the thing catcher it? Okay, so the Gemara over here says, according to Rabbah, that says that the one that dropped it, one that threw it off the roof, he's the one that really broke it. The guy on the bottom didn't. So obviously we look at the way it was at the beginning, not the way it broke, not that it broke. We look at Mikara, which would tell me that when Rabbah's question that if the chicken steps on the vessel and it rolls to somewhere else and it breaks over there, we should look at it as it was at the beginning. And we should say, we consider it that it's the chicken that broke it. The Gemara says, L'Rabba pshitale, l'Rabba mibayile. Just because Rabbah knows what Rabbah holds doesn't mean that he agrees with him. That's a good point. Gemara gave us a good point over here. He said, well, how come Rabbah doesn't answer it from what Rabbah says? Now, he knows what Rabbah says. He says, yeah, he knows what Rabbah says, but he still had the question. Doesn't mean that he agrees with him. Muktzah. Usually by muktzah, not by malacha.
Wash our hands.
So, okay. That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point. Okay. Tashima, Hiddas ain't a mud. Hiddas means a chicken that's hopping around or dancing around. That's not considered mud. Consider that abnormal. And it's not a typical thing. It's not for one. The Yeshem, others say is a mud. Some say that it is for one. Kamar says, Hiddas al kadaita. What do you think? Chickens don't hop? How can anyone say that that's not mud? Elalav hittus behittus. Talking about that it hopped around and then pebbles shot out from underneath the feet. That is not considered, according to some, that's not considered mud. And this would be the machlekes. The mar savar basumi karas linan. Well, it's not actually pebbles shot out, because then everyone would agree that would be teres. Here we're talking about a vessel shot out from under its feet, and it broke. So one says you look at it as it was at its feet, and that was at the beginning, the first action. Another one says you look at it as it was when it broke, the time of it breaking, and that was indirect. That wasn't directly from the something else broke it when it hit the ground.
I'm sorry. In the case before, if it was done, the intention was a partnership. So Shimon says, let's do this together. It wasn't like it just happened that the person at the bottom hit it with a stick.
I don't think it matters. Because if Shimon would have walked away, it still would have broken.
Dropped.
The fact that it fell off the roof was, yeah, I don't think it would matter. No, this would be, let's say Reuben's standing up on the balcony and he's dropping someone's computer off. And Shimon's on the bottom, says, don't worry, I'll catch it. Don't worry, it's not going to be a problem. And then Shimon walks away. So Reuben is all upset at Shimon. He says, why did you drop it? It says you're crazy for throwing it. You would have to pay.
What if Ruvain just came off the spaceship where he was born? And over there was no gravity. And if you let go of something, it never moved. And then
So,
he came to Earth and he let go. He said, I didn't drop anything. I just let go. I should have did it.
I think the answer would be that because Ruvain wasn't supposed to be holding that anyway, I think he would be higher on it. Ruvain.
I mean, if
The
there
guy that
was-
dropped it off
if
shouldn't
there
have.
was
It
hay-
wasn't his.
If there was hay on the bottom, he could drop it.
Oh, so that's a
It
different
wouldn't have
story,
broken.
right?
Then the guy goes and hits it.
Yeah.
But you can't hit it unless Ruben drops it.
Right.
Whatever they were playing a game or whatever
Right,
it
that's a
was.
different
So then
story.
Ruben was still moving high.
No, because when he drops it, it doesn't break. There's a protection on the
I
bottom.
know, but he wouldn't have thrown it. I mean, I'm saying it was a partnership together.
No, but you have to look at each person here, each action. What would be the result of that action?
Ruben wouldn't have thrown it, he
independent.
wouldn't have hit it.
But if Ruvain would have, so the guy that hit it broke it.
The guy that hit it broke it.
But Ruvain didn't
with
break it.
Ruben's help.
Okay, but Ruvain didn't break it. I didn't break it. You hit it. Yeah, I think that's how it would
Everybody
be.
agrees with that?
I don't know, but I think this is how we would
But
do
they
it.
agreed they would hit it together.
That's what I'm asking. Even if he.
Look, we had that case with the chair. A bunch of people sat on the chair, and the one guy sat down. We said the last guy was fired, right? The last guy that sat on the chair, he was tired.
There was no intention.
But it also mentioned
I'm not sure.
that the ball was
It doesn't matter by a person.
It also mentioned that the ball was in and over and didn't allow the shooter to get up.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. That Gemara said where he was blocking them from standing up when he sat down. Okay, let's go on. Okay. So Marsav Basim Mikarzim, we have two brises. One would say that you look at it as it was under his feet, and that caused the damage. Another one says you look at it as it broke. So you see, it's a machlekes. Exactly what Rav is asking. It's a machlekes between brises. Gemara says like, we're going to readjust that brisa. We thought we were talking about that it was dancing and it stepped on vessels. No, it was dancing and it stepped on pebbles, and the pebbles shot out and broke a vessel. And we know that the tzroiris, that's the case called tzroiris, that's a machlekes between Sumchas and the Rabbanan. Sumchas says tzroiris is nezek shalim, is full price, and the Rabbanan say tzroiris is half price, half payment. Come and listen. You have chickens that are pecking at the rope of a bucket. And the rope breaks. The rope snaps and the bucket breaks. Shalman nezek shalom, you have to pay full price. Now that's indirect. Shmamina, obviously, we see from this. You look at the initial action, which that was the breaking of the snapping of the rope. That the Gemara says, you know what you have to pay full price on? Not on the bucket, on the rope you have to pay full price. Very surprising. So, one second. It says, why would you pay full price for the rope? The fact that it was pecking at the rope, that's an abnormal. Chickens don't eat ropes. Chickens will eat anything, I think. But apparently, those chickens wasn't normal for them to eat ropes. My sister said she had chickens, and she has these containers, styrofoam containers that held some flowers or something. Because the chickens ate the whole styrofoam. They like pecked at the pellets, the thing. I don't know, whatever. They eat whatever there is. But apparently, the ropes they won't eat. The ropes those days were made from twine, and they went. It's like wood. The Gemara says, "Demos Belisha." On the rope there was dough. Now that explains everything. So on the rope there was dough. Our problem was if it's anything that's abnormal, it's always half price. They said no, this wasn't considered abnormal. This was considered totally normal. So that's why you have to pay full price for the rope, because there was dough on the rope. That's how it broke. The Gemara says, "Vanishbar dliktani." That's the obvious question. If we're not talking about paying for the vessel, then why do you add that detail in that the vessel broke? Just say there was a rope that the chicken pecked on, and he has to pay for it. Forget about the vessel. If you didn't want to tell me that he has to pay for the vessel, so the fact that you added in that the vessel broke obviously means that he has to pay for it. Ela Sumchasi, rather it's the opinion of Sumchas, that price that says that you have to pay full price for the vessel. Is the opinion of Sumchas the Materis Nezik Shalom Shalom. Says that for Tzreiras, for secondary damage, you have to pay full price. Sumchas, the Gemara says, how could you say it's Sumchas? Hey, Maseifa, let's go further. Okay, so the bucket falls and the bucket breaks, but that's not the end of the story. This is like a what's it called? Rube Goldberg. When the chicken pecked at the thing and it snapped and the bucket fell, the bucket then toppled over something. The broken pieces of the bucket toppled over something else, which broke that. So it says, you have to pay Chati Nezek on the second one. Sumchas doesn't have Chati Nezek. Sumchas says Tzreiris is Nezek Shalom, it's full price. Maybe, we never actually discussed this. We only said that Sumchas doesn't have Chati Nezek, half price, on secondary damage. But we didn't discuss third damage. Maybe he just knocks it over one step. Maybe Sumchus makes a difference between one step removed and two steps removed. The Gemara says, 1 second. On the next daf, we're going to have a question. Rav Ashi is going to ask, what does Sumchus hold about 2 steps removed damage? Does he hold that that's considered Nezek Shalem, just like a 1 step removed? Or does he say that everything just starts 1 step later? So why does Rav Ashi have a question? Tifshatle, he could have answered it. That it's not considered 1 step removed; it's considered 2 steps removed, and it's Chatzi Nezek. We have a Bryce over here that says it. Elalav Rabbanan. Rather, it must be the Rabbanan. Can't say that it's Sumchus because it doesn't fit with Sumchus. Because Rav Ashi has a question, and Rav Ashi didn't answer it based on this. So obviously, this is not the opinion of Sumchus. This must be the Rabbanan. Shmamina. It must be that we're following the kara. That's why it's going to be chayev for the bucket that breaks because it snapped the rope. The Gemara says, Amar Bibi Barabai, it's not so simple. Bibi Barabai says, the kazal minei minei. That even though we snapped the rope, now we were describing it where he snapped the rope and it fell and it broke on impact on the floor. Not necessarily. It was attached to a rope, but it's not because it fell. He pecked at the bucket, at the rope, and the rope snapped. And then, as the bucket was rolling away, the chicken went and was playing with it as it rolled away, rolling till it broke over there. So he did both. So it's still not a secondary damage. Now, this isn't a kimta. This sounds like a daichik, but whatever, to say, it sounded like nifsaka chevel v'nishbar adli sounds like it broke on impact. The rope snapped and the thing. That's when you read it. That's what it sounds like.
I'm sure the last thing you said, it seems like that reinitiates the chicken's action. I would think it's the chicken part. The vessel fell down. It did not break. It was on the hill. The vessel was rolling, then hit a boulder, shattered on the boulder. So now when it breaks, it really is removed twice from the chicken. And that's where the question is. Because if the chicken ran
that's not Rabbi Barabai is saying. Rabbi Barabai is saying is that why is it explaining why it's Nezek Shalom? Why does he have to pay full price for it? Rabbi has a question if the vessel is secondary. If it's not a rock that's shooting out of under his feet. It's the vessel that's moving. So do we say that that's considered secondary damage or not? Rava could have answered it from this, which we say that it's not. It's considered direct damage. Rava didn't answer it. So Rabbi Barabai is explaining that this is because it wasn't considered secondary damage because the chicken was still rolling around it to make it.
The owner,
still direct.
The owner of the string doesn't have any responsibility of keeping it clean without dough.
No, because there was no strings attached. It was the pecking order.
Before.
I don't
Have any
think so.
responsibility.
I don't know. That's putting too much responsibility on the victim. Let's say he left food out, left food in his property. Again, all of this is in his property. You say, but the animal comes and eats it. He said, well, you should have put it away. No, this is my property. Right?
But as long as it's on his property.
It's on his property. You leave food in a public area and you say you're surprised that the ants got to it. Well, not the ants, but you're surprised that the animals are going to be eating it. So it's like you left it
But
right here.
Any wild animal can go in
Yeah, but he has a fence and he has a gun and he has your animal got by, whatever, you know. Okay.
There's a baby in a pail. There's water in the pail. You throw the baby out with that water. The murderer, is it considered a mauling chicken? Heck that.
When it comes to murder, it needs to be more direct. It needs to be you have to be warned and everything.
Depends if you
Boy,
throw it
Rava.
to death.
Rabbi has a question. Rabbi has the questions over here. He says when it comes to Chatzinezek Tzeres is this indirect damage. So when it comes to Keren, when it comes to anything that's not typical, so those damages you pay half price unless it was done 3 times, and you also pay from the body of the animal. Anything that is typical, you pay from the best of his property. So here, Chatzinezek Tzeres is a little bit confusing. On one hand, it's Chatzinezek. On the other hand, it's typical. So what we don't know is what about do you pay migufa or do you pay me'aliyah? Do you pay from the body of the animal, which you would do by other things that are Chatzinezek, that are half price, or because it's typical, it's the normal way for it to behave. So then you have to pay from the best of your property.
This chose the same word. They had a different meaning that they used by other wives.
Sarah.
Most people would be.
Sorry.
choice. Wonder yet.
Okay. Gemara answers the Gemara. First the Gemara explains the question. Does he pay from the body of the animal because we never find half price that pays from the best of the property? Like, you know, when you pay from the best of the property, you're paying full price. Or you pay from the best of the property because you never find anything that's typical behavior that pays from the body. Dashma, come and listen. I'm going to bring up the same brisa again. Here, this ain't a mood. One brisa says that when a chicken jumps around, it's not considered a mood. Yeshem raise a mood. Some say that it is considered a mood. It is for one. Now, do you really think it's jumping around? That's considered not a muad, but that's what chickens do. They hop around. Elalav hidus is talking about that it knocked pebbles out while it was jumping. And here's a machlekes. What did he mean when he said it's not a muad? He meant that you have to pay from the body. The brisa was vague, and when it says ain't a muad, what does that mean? Could have said that it means that you pay half price. He says, no, we know it's half price. What does it mean ain't a muad? It means that he pays from the body. Mandam ar muad, with the other brisa that says that it's a muad, what he meant to say was that you have to pay from the best of the property. Mar says, lie, that's not what those terms are referring to. That price is referring to plukta the simchas for Rabbanan Kamiflagi. It's referring to machlekes simchas and Rabbanan. If it's shreiris, secondary damage, if that's considered, if you have to pay half price or full price, simchas holds full price and the Rabbanan hold half price. Tashema.
So this issue will come up if the value of the behemoth is less than half
Right.
of the
That would make
damages.
right? You end up getting away with paying just the value of your own
Yeah,
animal,
yeah.
even though the damage was much more than
Yeah.
than double that. It's more than double that.
Yeah.
Toshima, come and listen. Akel Shanatul Charara. It's famous in the Gemara, this case. A dog that takes a piece of cake. In those days, what do you say, Harara? Those days, the way they would make cakes was not always in a pan. They would put it directly on the coals, and the bottom of the cake would not be edible. The bottom of the cake was like burning hot. You would have to like peel it off the burnt part. It would be a part on the bottom that would be burnt, but that part on the bottom was red hot. It was cold. So what happened is here, he takes this piece of cake, he goes to eat it somewhere else. Where does he put it down on? On a haystack. Well, the bottom of the cake is burning. He eats the cake, but the kaddish burnt down. So there's two problems here. First of all, the cake. For the cake, he has to pay full price because that he ate. That's regular shame. But on the haystack, he has to pay half price. Gemara says, my time, but why does he have to pay half price? Because it was indirect. It's like the pebbles that shoot out. Anything that's indirect is is half price.
Dog that pays this, or the person who owns the dog? Okay.
The owner of the dog. Yeah. So B'tani Allah, we have a brisa that says right here. We're about to get an answer. It says that Mishalim Chatzi Nezek Migufai. You have to pay the half price. You have to pay Migufai, pay from the body itself. Here, what we're seeing is Treiris, which is half price, which is typical. It's normal for an animal to walk. It's normal for an animal to eat, and there's going to be Treiris that's secondary damage that comes from that, and that secondary damage, which is half price, has to be paid from the body of the animal. Umar says, "V'tizbara, do you really think so?" Rabbi Lezer Nezek Shalim, Migufay Miashkechan. Rabbi Lezer argues on that case, and Rabbi Lezer says that you have to pay Nezek Shalim. You have to pay full price for the haystack. Now, and he also says they have to pay Migufay. But are we going to say that from the body itself? We're going to say that according to Rabbi Elazar, I have to be correct over here, that according to Rabbi Elazar, let me see, what's this? It's not in the Mishnah. Where Rabbi Elazar comes up. It must be a brisa that's on the Mishnah. Okay. But Rabbi Elazar says that you have to pay full price. Is there such a thing as paying full price when you have to pay it from the body of the animal itself? Umar says doesn't seem like it. So Ella must be going to shani bahagachelas, that he did something abnormal and he put the coal part in his mouth, not the cake in his mouth. He was carrying it with the coal because he did it in an abnormal way. So that's why anything abnormal, anything atypical, you have to pay half price instead of full price. Now we changed the whole story. We're talking about that, of course, this burnt in a private property, right? So what's the halacha of keren, something that's atypical, that's done in a private property? You also have to pay half price, except according to Reb Tarfon, that holds that keren in chatzar hanizik, in the property of the victim, is full price. So it must be Reb Tarfon that he has to pay full price because it's keren b'chatzar nizik. The Gemara says v'loihi. This is really not so.
I thought if it wasn't
except if that's only if it's in a public area.
I
If it's
thought
in a
in,
private area, Reb
private
Tarfon,
also.
in a private area, according to the Rabbanan. Yeah. In a private area, it's a Machlekes Rabbanan and Reb Tarfon.
Yes, look in the best part. Half price for body of the dog. And what if those two amounts are
No, but the best property means from other things, not the dog. Yeah, the best property that the owner has.
What if both amounts is more than the dog? Can you just say, oh, here's the dog?
He says how much property and the dog is worth. It's mine. Can't recover it.
So 1 second. Those are two different things that he needs to pay. He can use other movable items, personal things to pay. That we learned.
But the damage is more than the animal. Forced to pay for damage for the animal.
Which damage? The cake or the haystack?
Both add up more than the dog.
No, but when the full price that he has to pay is never from the animal. Yeah, the full price is not from the animal, unless we're going to say that it's the opinion of Reb Tarfon, and where we're going to need to discuss this. In Reb Tarfon, where it says that it's atypical damage, then it's not so clear. The Gemara says, "My time, I'm Reb Tarfon. Why did you want to say that it's following the opinion of Reb Tarfon Mishum Nesek Shalem that says that it's full price, and in order to get full price on something like this, we had to say that it was a atypical manner of damage, which is called karen. Shinoi, it was done in an atypical manner, and it was in the property of the nizik, which is according to Reb Tarfon is nesek shalom. He says you don't need to do that. You can go like this. Rebbe Lezer savala kesumchas. Namar tzeres nesek shalom mishalom. Rebbe Lezer, he holds like sumchas. And it doesn't have to be atypical. It could be a regular typical damage. And it's still Nezek Shalom. Why is it Nezek Shalom? Because Sumchas holds that Sreiris, indirect damage, is also Nezek Shalom. There's also full price. For Savalak Rabbi Yehuda, and he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar, Tzad Tamas from Kaimei Medes. Chiktani Migufa at Tzad Tamas. Works like this. That it works like this. The Gemara is going to reject this in a minute, but meanwhile, what we're saying is that the fact that Sumchas holds that it's Nezek Shalom, what he's really saying is that there's a half price and a full price. Sumchas just adds one half to the other half, so it's not that it's really Nezek Shalom. It's half of it pays Gufay, half of the full price has to pay from the body, and the other half he pays Maliyah. So there's two parts to paying for Tzreiris, according to Sumchas. There's two halves. There's one half that comes from one source, and another half that comes from another source. The Gemara says, Amalei Rav Sama Breder Rav Ashi Ravina. Rav Sama, the son of Rav Ashi, says to Ravina, Ema Deshama Tleil Rabbi the Betam Ben Asamud. I've heard of that opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that says that there's a tam and then there's a muad. If it gores 3 times, it goes from a tam to being a muad. When it becomes a muad, then Rabbi Yehuda holds that Tzad Tamas B'Mkayim Medes, the original half price is still there, which means that the first half of the payment he pays from the body, and the second half of the payment he has to pay from the best of his property. That's what he says. But muad mitchilasai, but when it comes to tzreiros, where it's automatically a muad, mishametle, does he hold that it's 2 halves? It was originally he always paid a full price. There's not 2 halves there. He started off. He always pays full price. Elakikam Rabbi Lazar Nezek Shalem. When does Rabbi Lazar say Nezek Shalem kind of yayed? We're talking about that it did Sreiris 3 times. You know what's going on? 3 times it knocked pebbles out when it was so the Bahakam Iflagi, and here's the machlaikas. Sreiris we know is half price. So that now there's a machlaikas between the Bahakam Iflagi.
When Nezek Shalom, half price.
Right. Nezek Shalom means full price. Chatzi Nezek means half price. So Marsa v'yesha dalatzeres. One opinion holds that if it does it 3 times, it must be going back to the brisa that said the 2 brises about hiddas v'hittas. One says it's a muad and one says not. Must be going back to that. Or is it explaining the kelef shnatal charara? Is it explaining that this animal brought the brought the cake over 3 times to a gaddish and burnt it down 3 times? He made another one. It's the 3rd time burning down a haystack. Marsa v'yesha dalatzeres, Marsa v'ena dalatzeres. There's a question: if it does something 3 times, if it does shreiros 3 times, does it become a muad? Shreiros we know was Allah l'mish mesina, that it's only half price. Mar says 1 second. Elahad by Rava, you can't say that that's a machlekes because Rava had a question about this. Yesha dalatzeres, ena dalatzeres. Does doing shreiros 3 times become forewarned? Ilu Rabbanan, if we follow the Rabbanan, ena dalatzeres, then there's no such thing. It's always half price. Ilu Rabbalazar, if we follow Rabbalazar, yesha dalatzeres, then there is. Why did Rava have a question? It's clear that that it's a machlekes. Amlach Rava says, Kimi bayoli ledidi ali b'derabbanan depligel ad simchas. I was only asking, according to the Rabbanan that argue on simchas. Abal hacha, but over here, bein l'Rabbanan, bein l'Rabbalazar, k'simchas firlu. They both hold like simchas. The mitzeres nezek shalim mishalim. That really tzreiris is full price. So why did the rabbi say that it's only half price? The time Mayam Rabban Chatzi Nezek, why did the rabbi say that it's half price? The Shani V'layayit. This was a case where tzreiris itself was abnormal. It was a case of tzreiris, which is supposed to be full price according to Sumchis, but over here he did an abnormal type of tzreiris. We looked at the Reb Tarfon Rabbanan, and this is a machlekes Reb Tarfon and Rabbanan. Two versions of Rashi how to learn this, but that's a machlekes. The Gemara says, why is it a machlekes Reb Tarfon and the Rabbanan? Because Reb Tarfon holds that even something that's atypical, which is normally half price, over here, and if it's in the area, in the location of the victim, it's going to be full price. Does Reb Tarfon say that you pay from the body itself? We had a brisa that says that you pay from the body itself. Does he say that you do that? The Gemara says he holds yes. How does he know this? Mikeren, Rishus Harabim. He learned it from Karen and Rishus Harabim. So Reb Tarfon has this thing where he learns a Kal V'chomer that if Karen, something atypical damage in a public area, has to pay half price, so in a private area it should for sure be full price. The Gemara says, but 1 second, Dayal V'amidin Lias Kanidin, but Reb Tarfon doesn't hold of Dayal. So, but whatever the case is, what the Gemara is doing now, he doesn't hold that Dayal V'amidin Lias Kanidin means you can't go any higher than what you started with. Yeah? So the Gemara says that we're quoting this other Gemara now. It's that where does Reb Tarfon know that Karen in a private area is full price? He learns it from a Kal V'chomer and ignores Dayai. He ignores that you can't go higher. He actually goes higher than where we start. It says Reb Tarfon Leslie. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take Nigufai, that you have to pay from the body itself, and say that if in a Rishus Harabim you have to pay from the body itself by half price, so you also have to say in the private area you have to pay from the body itself, even though it's full price, because you can't go higher. Can't say any more than the original. But the Gemara says, how did he get to full price? Because he ignores the concept of not going higher. It says, Ki Leslie Daya, when does he not go? When does he ignore that rule of Daya? Daya means it's a code word. That means you can't, a Kal V'chomer can't go any more than where you initially started from. You can't say that if a weak person can lift 10 pounds, then a strong person can lift 20 pounds. No, you can only say Dayal V'amidin Lias Kanidin. You can only say that a strong person can lift 10 pounds also. Reb Tarfon ignores that. But when does he ignore that? Echad the mafrech kal v'chomer, that's only if it would ruin the whole kal v'chomer. Echad the lay mafrech kal v'chomer stay daya, but if the kal v'chomer would still be there, like in our case, we have a kal v'chomer that you learn from Karen in a public area to Karen in a private area, we would still accept the concept of daya that both of them are going to be mikufay. Okay, let's leave it over here. Have a good day.
I can get over the part.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Good day. With the dropping of the thing.
And